Hey everyone, Brian Beeler and Kevin O'Brien coming to you from Storage Review. And today we've got a special guest to talk about Pure Storage and, more importantly, this layer of management and AI on top called Pure1. And we're going to get to all that. But man, Pure's been around forever, it seems like now, which is funny to think of them as a startup a number of years ago. And they came in with this disruptive device around Flash and really shook up the mainstream enterprise storage market.
Especially, it's been easy to use from day one, and that's been, I think, a big turning point for a lot of vendors that have had kind of really tough to use interfaces, and then you bring in something that is dramatically different, easier, and it goes into someone of a man of many hats can handle managing it versus someone that's dedicated to specifically that one system.
Oh, absolutely. There was always the deal with like the storage admins had to know these clunky interfaces, and Pure came in with new technology, new networking. I remember, wasn't it InfiniBand they had even really early on that was super high performance Flash, and then a UI that was easy to use. And that was sort of the perfect storm to let these guys challenge a lot of the mainstream incumbents and take a big chunk out of their business. And Pure's still going strong on their own, which is neat as a publicly traded company. Yeah. Where a lot of those other guys, especially the ones that were hybrids early on,
they've
been acquired and sold a couple times, and were no longer with us. Yes. Pour one out tonight for those guys. But we don't want to dwell on that. We want to talk a little bit more about what Pure's doing on the software side, because really, as Kevin points out, functionally being able to provide additional value, ease of use, better operations with software is a big benefit. I want to bring in our friend Ralph Ranzio here from Pure Storage. Ralph, thanks for coming in.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I know you're busy playing T2 just a moment ago, but I'm glad you've taken a break from that to sit with us for a minute. So you did a demo for me and some of our other team a week or two ago about some of the new stuff you have in Pure1, and it's just, we'll get into it. It's so cool, so easy to use, and the predictive bit is more than just marketing. So sometimes those claims can be a little dubious. But before we get too far into this and run down this demo, just at a high level, set up Pure1 for us and what you're trying to accomplish there.
Sure, yeah. So Pure1's kind of been with us from the start, from the early stages. You mentioned earlier, it still feels like a startup in a lot of ways because we're still as fast moving as we were when I joined, which was, trying to think back, 2015 now. So I've been here for quite a while. And, Pure1 was really there as sort of this centralized sort of monitoring tool. It didn't do that much more than that at that time. And our whole design goal with it was we envisioned, we kind of saw the whole cloud shift happening where customers wanted things very quickly as a service catalogs, all those types of things. And all of that really equated to just a simple, more point and click user experience where they wanted everything to be almost, instantly available. So we kind of at that time had a vision that it would be this one-stop shop for not only doing reporting and management and also sort of predicting the future with analytics, to try to figure out what you need when you need it, but also morphing in, could a customer start purchasing and kind of doing everything, whether it be procuring the technology, ordering it, tracking it, everything, all from a single interface. So we've kind of morphed into that direction. So really, in a nutshell, it's a cloud-based as a service platform that now includes a service catalog. So you now have the ability to purchase equipment both on premises and in the cloud from a single interface. So it's really evolved over the years, and it's really like redefining what customers expect out of tools like this.
Well, yeah, and that's an interesting point because it's neat in that it involves the cloud offerings, the on-prem offerings, and even the container bit now too, right?
Yeah. So with the acquisition of Portworx, we've started to push in a lot of that into the tool as well. So you can purchase and order Portworx from there. You can even, for customers that are kind of starting on their container journey, and maybe they came from virtual machine world and they're trying to figure out how to get their first kind of containerized application started, you can even order a professional services offering straight from the service catalog to kind of get you started, sort of a jump start into containerization of workloads. So yeah, we're really trying to focus on that too. And you can open up support cases on Portworx as well. So making sure Portworx is fully integrated into this whole ecosystem that is Pure1 is important for us.
Well, let's get into it. So I know we've got a system you've got set up, or several that you're monitoring here. So I mean, just at a high level, this was the where we started in the demo you and I did, and you just visually all the little meters and metrics and everything that jump out at you is it's a nice clean look.
Yeah.
So this initial view you get entered into is the appliance view. And the reason why it looks the way it does is that the system itself was designed to be accessible from anywhere. And it was initially sort of created to be friendly on an Android device or an iPhone, something where you're mobile. So that's why these cards look the way they do. So you can imagine if you're on a phone, you can scroll through these really quickly to just get a high level overview as to how your infrastructure is doing. You see things like performance, IOPS, you see things like data reduction. So it's a way to kind of check on your fleet or check on the systems in your fleet in a simple, easy to use manner. And then you can sort of hit one of these little eye options in the top right hand corner for more information. It'll give you if there's any alerts on those particular systems. So it's a great high level view, but the whole system in itself was designed to be mobile friendly. So that's why you'll see things like this. But if you're on something that has a larger screen, you can actually expand all of these things out to see even more information. So everything, might look tidy at first, but if you want to really expand it and look and do deep dives, you can. But the goal initially is that, hey, maybe I want to just check in on something at a glance. So I want to look at it quickly and easily and then move on with my day.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is big. Kevin, how much time do you spend at your system versus, running around the lab or the office and administering? You're on your phone all the time.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of glancing to make sure that things that I assume are working are still working, or capacities. I mean, we're looking at certain applications right now where we're filling certain items pretty quickly. You always want to make sure you're not running out of space.
Right. Yes, we'll see that a lot in some of our reviews where we're provisioning something, but then you want to make sure that you haven't gone too far.
Yeah.
Yes, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you'll notice every 30 seconds, you'll sort of see if you can catch it. You'll see this gear icon because we're sending information home every 30 seconds. So you'll see things. It's 30 seconds behind all the time, but you're going to have the most up to the minute information. So these things will dynamically change. So like a way a customer uses this, or a way some of our customers use this, is they'll use this view if they have an active project where they may be migrating an application or even bringing on a new application just to make sure things are going okay. It gives you most of the information they want to know, performance, data reduction, and things like that.
So speaking of some of that, I mean, I'm seeing the workload placement banner running across the top right now. You're highlighting the new features, which I guess you're doing a lot of to make your customers aware of what's going on. What does your dev cycle look like on this product in terms of how often you're putting new things out there?
Usually it's a release a quarter, so you'll see us adding features almost every quarter. It's sometimes more frequently if we need to, but for the most part, we have a quarterly cadence where we're releasing new features and functions. Now, if they're minor things, sometimes you'll see them more often than not, like bug fixes and things like that. But for a feature, like for instance, you mentioned workload placement, and this banner is actually here to be an advertisement for those new features. So a customer coming in that maybe hasn't been in the tool for a little while can see what we've added. But this one was something we literally just added the other day, and it wasn't really a major release. It was kind of just a minor feature, although it has a lot of power to it. And we'll cover it probably as we kind of walk through the interface further.
Okay, yeah, let's keep cruising.
Yeah, so this is just the basic appliances view. There's some things in here that are new, that are notable. So obviously, ransomware is a huge concern for customers everywhere. No matter where you are in the world, it seems like ransomware attacks are on the rise. So there's this new little icon that we've added that just looks like a shield. And that shield will tell you if you have a feature from Pure Storage called safe mode snapshots enabled or disabled. And so you can see at a high level if it's enabled or disabled, but we created an assessment that's specially designed so a customer can see every system in their fleet, and they can actually tell whether or not safe mode is enabled or disabled. And what safe mode really is it's this idea that you can create immutable snapshots that aren't even accessible by the customer as far as their administrators or even people there that have full access to their storage infrastructure. And the reason for that is that a customer can actually open up a case with Pure, enable this feature, and then in the event of a ransomware attack, it's actually another layer. So let's say that for some reason an application server got infiltrated and data was destroyed or held at ransom, and the customer needs to restore that data back. This is another layer of protection that we add. So if they have safe mode enabled snapshots, they can actually restore the complete data, but they have to get in contact with Pure support first, because we want to make sure this is like one of those last line of defense things. If your data is literally missing, we want to make sure that we hold the keys there and that we're absolutely certain that doing a restore to that point in time is what a customer actually wants to do. So it's a new feature. It's something that we added this assessment for, so that customers can see at a glance where it's enabled or disabled. And then also, we have a PS engagement for customers that have more complex environments. They may not want to just flip a switch and turn this on. They may want to actually meet with someone from a services perspective and sort of have more of a deeper conversation if their environment's more complex. So that's also available via our service catalog, which I'll show you as we walk through the demo.
With those snapshots, is there a visibility in terms of the footprint those have, or the available snapshots versus just it's turn on or turn off, but it's something that gives you an idea of the overall impact? I know you don't really want to give the customer as much access to like delete them, but seeing how much of a impact it has to total storage capacity.
That's actually, it's really great question. So that's exactly why we are enabling it the way we are. So let's say the customer decided that, and our system names are kind of weird, but these are engineers that create these names. So there's one called dog food bacon, for instance. And so if the customer said, I'd like to request safe mode be enabled here, they're able to do that and schedule it all from this interface, so they can actually find a time with support that works and then schedule that. The reason for us doing that is that we will look at data such as change rates to say, look, there are ramifications to turning this on. So if you want 10 days of safe mode protected snapshots, we use AI to say, it looks like you'd be using about this much storage if you decided to do this. So that's the reason why we don't want people just turning it on and off, because obviously snapshots in general, as we know, in storage are gonna, depending on change rates, it can add up to some storage space, even with dedupe and compression. So that's why we have it enabled this way. I don't anticipate that changing anytime soon, because when you are enabling a feature that has ramifications on storage capacity, it's important that you kind of understand what you're turning on and turning off. So that's why we do it that way. So you're absolutely right. There would be some storage ramifications there. That's why we want to make sure that with this particular feature, they actually have to contact support.
But even that little piece there, the integration with setting up a meeting, I mean, that's really handy.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking back to all the different times of trying to interface with different support channels, and some, even the best ones, you're on a phone and you're trying to just get in touch with someone, and it's just frustrating waiting there minutes or longer.
Minutes. Well, that and sometimes the case is more complicated, and there'll be like one guy in like the Philippines that knows the answer.
A direct thing of like, hey, I have an advanced asked, I need some help with this specific item, versus you hit like level 1 tech or something. And
but even I mean, I think this is really neat from just a simplicity standpoint.
Yeah. So we've integrated this into the support system, but we've also integrated other things. You'll see as we walk through, there's a whole bunch of things that we've integrated into support, so that you no longer need to sort of like pick up the phone, or you really can do it all from one single place. So we'll show you that as we kind of progress through here. So, so I think a natural place to go would be maybe looking at, before we go into things like the service catalog, maybe looking at our planning tools, which are all kind of relatively new. I mean, we've had these for a little while, but we added a whole bunch of new things in there that I think are going to be really appealing to what is now sort of the traditional cloud infrastructure or store, in some cases still called the storage admin. But there's some really neat planning tools that we just added not that long ago, which we could go there if that makes sense.
Yeah, let's take a look. Yep.
Yeah. So when we go to the planning tool, and you'll notice right here, this was I was planning something prior, so you'll see there's a summary of a simulation I did prior. We can just delete those. It shows you those on the side, so as you build your as you sort of build out your planning, it's all stored in one place, and you can even export those things too, and then re-import them later. But what I'll do is I'll show you. So let's say a customer was coming in and wanted to bring on a new workload that's completely unfamiliar to them. So like maybe they haven't brought this workload on before. We have a button here at the top called Simulate New Workload. Now you can also simulate existing workloads. So if there's something on the system you're already running, then why not use the metrics that we've already collected? So if you wanted to scale, let's say, an existing workload, you can do that. But for purposes of this, we'll actually go back and do that too. But this would be if a customer wants to bring on a brand new application to a particular system. So let's just say this is this dog food homework system, the one that we're working with. I can click on simulate new workload, and here are some ones I've done in the past. So we're going to ignore those. But if I say add a new one, we've got 13 predetermined workloads that are already in here. And when we talk about at Pure this idea of workload DNA, it's us looking at our fleet of installed systems and trying to find commonality between, Oracle databases, Exchange and SQL and MySQL and SAP HANA, so that we can build profiles so customers can kind of like eliminate the guesswork of bringing on new applications, and then we size them in sort of this small, medium, and large. Now, that's not going to fit every customer. So some that maybe are working with an application owner and they decide what you've predetermined isn't exactly what I want, I'll show you. You can sort of tweak and tune that. But let's just say for purposes of this, the customer's bringing on a PostgreSQL database, and the size is a large deployment. Now you'll see if I toggle through small, typical, and large, you'll see all these parameters will shift. And these parameters are shifting based on what we believe would be the profiles for these particular attributes for that application. So if I go to large and I tune any one of these, like let's say my application owner says, you know what, for you guys, your IO size is actually slightly different. You can lower that, and then you'll see other things will lower, like your bandwidth is going to lower with the IO size, obviously. So those things, it's all intelligent and built in, and it automatically shifts you to a custom workload because you've now fallen out of the range of what we would consider a large deployment. But let's just say that we agree that that everything looks good for this large deployment. We can name this, I'll just say new application for purposes of this. And then it also adjusts data reduction size and all those things, and capacity requirements. So if you disagree with this, you can kind of tune that just like everything else in here. And then when I save it, now I have this new profile called new application. But obviously, if I'm bringing on a new application, I want to put it on some system I have in my infrastructure, right? So I click on next to select a target array, and this is really cool. So this is the workload placement recommendation. It kicks in and it automatically says, look, we can show you your recommended placement for this workload versus you guessing. So instead of just sort of looking through this list and going, oh, this one looks good, you can click on show recommendations. And what this does, it runs a big data job against all the systems in your fleet to say which one would be most adequate. And it runs through a bunch of different variables. So it's running against load, capacity, performance, all of the things that you'd expect, data reduction, to make sure not only it fits from a performance profile, but it fits from a capacity standpoint as well.
But you're taking away the graybeard intuition, though.
Yeah, so this was our idea to eliminate the whole the guesswork piece again. So this could have been in the past. It could have been an SE coming out to help a customer. It could have been the customer's more proficient and they have their own ability to do this kind of stuff. But the way we looked at it is we already have the data. We're going to know it best. So why not just use AI to figure out what system to put it on? So obviously, in this particular instance, I have 33 arrays in my demo environment, so it's going to take a little bit longer. If you had 4 arrays or 5 arrays, this may be back in about 5 seconds or so. It takes a little bit longer, but what you get back is you get back this screen where it's going to show me my optimal placement for that system. So it's going to show me this would be a great place to put it, and then it shows you sort of where you're at before you add it, and then where you're at after. And then it's going to show me also if there's areas where it may not be as optimal, it's going to show me this circle with an X. There's also another one where if it's not available to be placed at all, it'll have like a straight line with a definition for what that means. And of course, right now it's escaping me, but I think it just means that there's variables there that we're not able to account for. So therefore, we're not going to recommend that system. But yeah, so this was the one it would recommend. You can click on it and click next, and then it gives you a summary of that change. So it's now showing you the before and after metrics. So it shows you the baseline before you did it, and then the baseline with the changes. So it's pretty cool. And then the great thing is this then feeds into other tools. So let's say right now that maybe the customer was unhappy with. They're like, well, it looks like it fits, but 86% capacity is kind of too high. I don't really want to run it that way. They can save the simulation, and they can go into the hardware simulator. Now you'll look. There's this little box right here that kind of closes just to make it so that it's not so cluttered. If I open it up, that's the simulation we just did. So it's kind of like you can stack simulations on top of each other. So if I did another one, I could do another one and then go into the hardware simulator. And here it's basically saying to me, the current hardware you're on is fine. It's adequate based on load. But it does say to me that, my capacity is 80%, but if I want, I can model how that would change if I added additional storage. So I can add, let's say, a data pack here, and it's going to basically show me the difference between the before and after with that additional capacity added. So obviously you're going to see my projected capacity goes down because I was at 35%. Now I'm at 23. And then if the customer wants, they can even request a quote. I'm internal to Pure, so it doesn't allow me to do this. But I can request a quote.
They know too much about your spending habits, I think.
Yeah, right. That's very true. So you can then request a quote for that particular infrastructure. So again, trying to layer on lots of automation here. Now, this doesn't just automatically ship them that additional storage. It informs the account executive and the partner of record on this account that there's a quote that's been created. It then logs it in the order status section of the interface. And then they can track it. They can see that the AE received it. And then if they do have a conversation and agree that that's what they want to do, you'll actually be able to track it from when it's dispatched to manufacturing to when it shows up on site as well.
For me, just the visualization, I think, when we were looking at the simulation before, is a very useful piece of information, especially as you roll up from practitioner to levels of administration above you that may not be as technical. Sometimes a picture is super handy in terms of where those limits are.
Well, the price request element, just in terms of like how our interactions have been with different companies on just acquiring hardware, something that you can click a button and get, I'm assuming, get a price quote that is in your discount range or something pretty quick.
Based on your channel partner.
Versus calling your channel partner, going through the whole thing of like negotiated rates, and, like start that all over.
Right. Yeah, this is just even the simple charts are just, I think, very powerful.
Yeah, and in some cases, let's say that that the AI engine decides that there are recommendations that it wants to make, whether that be on controllers or capacity. You'll see right now it's saying that the AI engine is just suggesting that the current is fine. It's saying based on the model, we actually believe that you're fine with what you have. If that wasn't the case, you'd see something else lit up as a recommended action, and then you'll see sort of, here's my baseline is 44%. If I were to jump up to, this is obviously not required in this case, but if I jumped up here, you'll see my trend line is going to go down. So because now I have way more capability than I really need. And then if for some reason we were suggesting that capacity be added, this would light up as well. And then if I click that, it's going to show me what's recommended. Now, notice what happened here. I came in and I added a data pack. So I said, look, I think I need 45 terabytes. The AI engine's like, no, actually, you don't need that. So when it actually took it away, it said, based on what we see, you're not at any kind of risk, so you don't need that. So if you make a mistake, it'll actually correct your mistake as well.
Pretty cool. That's pretty slick.
Yeah, so this is just one way you can do things. I'm going to delete this simulation summary, but you can also scale existing applications, because what we did is we added a new one. But what if there was something that was pre-existing? So you can click on the system and then you can click on simulate workload. And what simulate workload does is it's going to show me a bunch of workloads that are already on the selected system I clicked on. So let's just say that, for instance, we wanted to migrate these applications or this application, everything on this system to somewhere else. I could then click on migrate. So you can do all sorts of things. You can scale it. So let's say you knew the application was going to grow by some percentage over time. You can do that. You can clone it, which is basically just picking it up and saying you want to move it, or you want to duplicate it. Let's say I did want to migrate it though. I can click on migrate. Now, migrate usually means I want to move it somewhere else within my environment. Same thing, the recommendation engine will pop up. You can say show recommendations, and it will actually show you the system that's most adequate for that workload. Now, you can also do it yourself. You can click on and say that's where I want to put it, and click next, and it's going to show you what the before and after would be for those. And it looks like I picked OK because it's not really going to cause much impact here. So So again, you can kind of do it on your own, or you can decide to use the recommendation engine. However, whatever's kind of works for you. Some of our customers that have been using the systems for a really long time, they may not need the recommendation engine, but as the environments get more and more sophisticated, I mean, we have very large enterprise customers that have, they could have 100 systems, and for that, it may make a lot of sense to use the recommendation engine versus trying to do that as a manual process. So.
Yeah, that seems like that might be a nice way to, if you're going to retire an old controller or trade it in for a new one, a nice way to move workloads off or around as you're working through that process as well.
Yeah, yeah, and what might be an interesting example to go through is, and let's see if I can do this live. It might be interesting to go through an example where it's making a recommendation to add capacity or even change the controller. So I'm going to try to find one that's kind of busy here. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. This one's pretty busy. So let's check that one, and then we're going to go to simulate workload, and I'm going to say that. Let's see. We'll pick a couple of these volumes that maybe
you're going to make it panic.
Yeah, hopefully not. All right, we're gonna go. Let's say that we're gonna grow this by 4x. We'll see if that's actually enough to trigger an event here. Okay, so it's not quite. So it's putting my workload at 68%. So that's not necessarily out of the range. So let's kind of try to make it so that it's a lot more busy than that. So we'll say let's go 5x. I want to try to get it into a critical point where it's going, hey, look, you need to make some changes here to accommodate this workload. We're getting there. So we're still in the green. So we'll just add a couple more. And this is good because a customer can say, all right, well, how much do I want to migrate? They may go in here and go, oh, wow, I'm kind of hitting a threshold here. We'll say that this is going to scale by 7x. And then I'll hit apply. So now what we're going to have is, we're in trouble. We're 105% of capacity. Still looks like I'm okay from a performance standpoint, but what I would expect, knowing how the algorithm works, I would expect if I save this and go into the hardware simulator, it should light up that it's suggesting that I upgrade my capacity. So let's see what it says, because 105%, we're not able to run it under 5%.
That seems more than the total capacity available.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to click on simulate hardware. And now what we should see is this show recommended lit up on me. Now, it's still saying I'm fine from a controller standpoint. If I wasn't, it would actually light up an additional controller and say, this is where you need to go. But it didn't, because we're still in compliance. 70% is still fine. So I want to click this because I'm curious. It's saying I'm at 105%. What is it going to suggest? So basically, it looks like I have two 183 terabyte data packs already. So I'm already consumed in the chassis of my system. If I click show recommended, it's saying we believe you need another 127 terabyte data pack, and that will put me at a projected capacity of 79% versus 100, and I think it was 5% is what it said. Mm-hmm. And if a customer feels comfortable with that, like I said before, they can request a quote there and kind of move on. So pretty cool. And you guys both mentioned it. There's still human intervention here. It doesn't get immediately shipped. It lights up the AE and the partner of record so that they can kind of discuss it with the customer. If they agree, they can move on to ordering and tracking.
Gosh, that's the best day ever for the account exec to wake up and have that alert on your phone. Like, I didn't do anything, but here I've got an order ready to go.
Well, and you know what? It helps them too, because a lot of times, obviously we're still a very big growth company, so we want to gain net new customers, and a lot of time is spent on customers servicing, or our teams and partners servicing the existing account base, and our customers are actually asking for more self-service. So this gives them the self-service ability, and there's still a human element. So if for some reason they decided they want to do something else, they still have to speak with someone. But eventually, maybe down the road, this becomes fully automated. I don't know, but it seems like it's baby steps with customers. They don't want to. They want the self-service, but they don't want it to be. Maybe this is a bad reference. I was going to say Skynet, but because you made a T2 reference, but Skynet was trying to destroy the world. So maybe that's a bad reference. But you know what I mean? To fully automate
Amex
it.
And let
it take control of your corporate card.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Well, I mean, for simplicity and ease of use, sure. I mean, that's a nice thing to have. And then when the occasion calls for the lunch or or bourbon to seal the deal. You can still make that happen too in person if you want.
Yeah. So I think going through planning is interesting, but what if you want to order something new? I think the service catalog that's probably the hottest thing we have right now, as far as there's a lot of customer interest. And again, going back to that whole help me make it as easy as if I order a service from, Amazon, or if I order grocery delivery, make it that easy. And so we heard our customers loud and clear on that one. So we started to evolve this idea of having a service catalog. So imagine, you guys know that we offer block services, and then we offer file and object services via FlashBlade. But we also offer things like Portworx, which is our containerized native cloud offering. And then you have professional services as well. So the catalog contains everything that we offer from a company perspective, but everything you order from the service catalog falls under the Pure as a service buying model. So for instance, what I mean by that is you're able to set your capacity, set your terms, and as you adjust the terms, your pricing adjusts as well. And you can actually do all that live. Everything is disclosed, just like when you go to Amazon and you look at your storage costs, it shows you a chart. Same thing here. So we could walk through an example of that if you guys want to see that really quick, to see what that experience would be like.
Let's do that. I don't see the Pure hoodie as a service, though.
Yeah, we don't have that yet. Well, actually, I'm surprised we don't have the store.
49 cents a month for the hoodie, and then you can evergreen it every 3 years.
Funny story is we used to include Pure T-shirts in the boxes when you ordered a system, and we stopped doing it because, I think it might have been a cost thing, but I think it was one of our larger customers. They did a deployment, and the account team came in, and there was like a stack in the corner of like 100 T-shirts, and they're like, we don't know what to do with these. And so it seemed wasteful to us at the time, so we kind of stopped doing it. But you used to get a T-shirt with your system when you ordered it. So anyways, I digress on that. But so basically, depending on what the customer's trying to do, if it's block storage, you can choose Pure as a service block. If it was file or object, you can choose Pure as a service, which called Unified Fast File and Object, which you guys know is the FlashBlade product. And then obviously we have Portworx for your containerized workloads. But since we're at the top, we can start there. But every card here is categorized by the level of service that we're offering. So this one is Ultra. It is Ultra, Premium, Performance, and Capacity. So you can imagine Ultra and Premium. What does that mean exactly? It gives you a high level, basically, definition of what it means. Ultra, it says it's the highest performance block level storage for mission critical IO. And it's got a relative performance of 20x. Premium is maybe a little less performant and geared more toward VDI and virtualization, where the Ultra is more in-memory databases, high performance, mission critical, almost tier 0 applications. Performance, maybe it's not going to be as performant. You can still run production databases on it, but maybe it's not as mission critical as, let's say, Ultra is. And then capacity is going to be sort of your tier 2 workloads that you want to put on Flash that may have been previously on spinning media, still on SATA spinning media or something like that. Now, out of these 4 services you see here, performance is actually offered both on premises and in the cloud. So performance is actually offered, if you look here, performance is offered on AWS and Azure. So you can actually order both on premises and cloud services all from a single dashboard. But just to kind of dive into each one, we don't need to dive into each one because you're going to see the same things in each one. But for instance, if someone decided that they have a high performance database, they can click on Ultra. And when they go in here, you can simply click on use cases, and it shows you like these are the standard use cases for our Ultra service offering. And it shows, examples of databases, Cassandra, DB2, MySQL, things like that. So a customer can kind of just say, all right, I feel like I'm on the right service because from a use case perspective, I planned on deploying SAP HANA. But if they want to then see what the pricing looks like, they can just click on pricing and it's all there for them. So based on the term, the pricing will change. Now it's displayed here, but it's also displayed if they feel comfortable enough, they can hit request quote, and they can actually adjust their capacity and terms right from this screen. Now it does match the prior screen, but if they want to just do that here, they can kind of adjust that, and you'll see the cost per month is adjusted accordingly to the terms. If they want to do a 60-month, you can see obviously the price comes down quite a bit. Now, I think there's this like misnomer that cloud isn't necessarily saving money really. It's kind of more of a convenience thing. So customers may say, look, from an operating expense perspective, this makes more sense for us. We're kind of trying to get out of this idea of CapEx. Plus, you don't ever really own anything here. So it's kind of the model everyone's sort of moving towards. So this is sort of an example of that, and then they can hit submit on that. And again, this isn't going to ship it out to them immediately, but it's going to do the same thing as we saw prior. It's going to inform the account executive and the partner of record that they're requesting this service from the service catalog. The only exception to this is the AWS and Azure cloud service that ties to your respective accounts in your marketplace. So if you order those, you are going to get access to those immediately, where these they're on premises purchased, but you still have to walk through some of the manual processes of interacting with your account team and your partner.
Yeah, well, it's still it's transparent and obviously pretty simple to walk through the process of what you want and the levels and capacity and timelines. I mean, it's pretty easy. Hard to complain too much about it, really.
Yeah, and then when it's going back to the easy thing, once they click submit on that, you'll see it's trackable. Now, this is my demo environment, so you're going to see a lot of stuff in here. But if a customer,
your failed orders.
Yeah, exactly. If you go in here, you're going to see, all right, I ordered a service. The quote was requested, so it shouldn't sit in quote requested very long, because that would mean the AE's not doing what they should be doing. But yeah, they're sitting
Money on
on
the
it.
table.
Don't worry about that guy. That's going to get processed ASAP.
So yeah, right. So yeah, who wouldn't want an instant order? But yeah, so they're going to go in here and they'll see the quote is requested. So basically, from a customer standpoint, that means that you've requested something and your AE has been notified, and then they see that all through the progress. So if it says it's shipped, you'll see status shipped. They can click on that and it'll have a tracking number down here for what exactly they shipped, and they can sort of see the progress of where it's at.
Yeah, I mean that's really cool. I mean all this stuff is really neat. I know we're gonna get short on time, but I want you to show me one more thing.
Sure.
Because I know that the Pure1 is all about managing your Pure infrastructure, but you've got another visualization tool around utilization, VMs, and that sort of thing in the product too. Can you just do 60 seconds or less on that?
Yeah, so under Fleet, there's a couple things you can do. You can see your current subscriptions, and that's kind of tied to your orders, right? You don't have a subscription until the order's complete, so you would see those here, right? You have a 12-month subscription for some service here, but virtual machines is there as well. So we added a capability where we've had this for a little while now, where you can see virtual machines. So you can see your VMs, you can see your hosts, the data stores, the volumes, the array, even going back to the actual disk on the virtual machine. I'm sorry, not the virtual machine, but the virtual machine host. Why this was so important is customers, as virtual machines kind of took hold, it was really hard to kind of keep track of how many machines are out there, which ones are static, which ones are dynamic. You may even have orphaned virtual machines that are sitting out there and no one's using them. So this is a way for a customer to visualize, the whole view of an application. And if it was a problem with, let's say, like a data store they thought wasn't performing well, they could click on that object and it shows you the dependencies all the way back to the actual physical array. Now, in this case, it's just one array, but some virtual machines, virtual infrastructure has multiple systems that back it to support it. And then it will give you, when you click on an object, it sort of gives you the latency aspects of the whole entire system. So like, if, for instance, the storage, if someone thought, maybe the application owner thought that the storage was actually a bottleneck or a problem, someone could go, well, actually, look, the overall latency from my storage infrastructure is 0.37 milliseconds. So
it's always networking. Just blame the networking.
Yeah, exactly. So you can obviously kind of look at this any way you want. So you have the virtual center instance, you have the data center itself, and then you have the cluster. And the great thing is this, you can look here, there's lots of data centers, there's lots of clusters, but what if you want to search? Well, we just added a search capability. So if a customer knows exactly the application, like the data store name or even the virtual machine name, they can search for that here, and then it will just pull up that object, and then they can see, okay, I want to see the layout of that entire application from that particular object on. Like if it was prod 1, I can click on prod 1 and I can see what my disk or my volume latency is and what my array latency is. And this was a way, there were some of our customers, their infrastructure people were using it as sort of like, hey, I'm good. Like, here's my report. I generate the report, and then they can send that off to the application owner and say, actually, we're looking pretty good from a storage infrastructure perspective, so maybe your problem is elsewhere. But you can see, you'll see the host. So if the host actually has an issue, you could pass along that, hey, it looks like the latency is in the host for some reason, and the array looks like it's performing okay. So maybe we need to check further. So our future state for this, though, is to be able to sort of get more in the AI realm with this, because this is kind of just displaying you information, and then you need to take action on it. Where we'd like to get this to a point where it's making recommendations. So you may come in and it may say, hey, you have some data stores that have high latency, and it's because of this. Maybe you should take this action. We haven't quite got there yet. And then the Portworx containerized workloads will actually feed into this as well. So we'll visualize both virtual machines and containerized workloads in the same place. And I know right now it just says virtual machines, but that will, in a future state, say virtual machines and containers. So you can see both of those worlds in the same view.
Well, and ultimately, you need to get there because obviously your customers are doing both, and if you look at overall growth, it's probably more on the container side, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why we just added this feature to our service catalog. It's actually down here at the bottom, I believe. Yeah, application integration services. So that's got a lot of things where if customers are starting to go in there and do more containerized workloads, it gets them up and running on that quickly, so they can kind of have assessments. We can go out there because you can order Portworx. You can order a free, up to 5 node version of Portworx right in here and just say start now. So if the customer wants to get started with containerized workloads, they can do that right from our interface, start using it. And Portworx is really designed to be a sort of point and click and have a customer be up and running really quickly. It was meant to be, containerized applications as in a user-friendly way. So more likely than not, unless they are further on in the journey, they probably don't need professional services, but we do offer that because there are some customers that go, look, I don't have the skill set on the bench to get us from VMs to containers. So we offer those types of things. And we're starting to see that ramp up a lot, especially after the Portworx acquisition. And customers start small with like the free 5 node, and then they start to grow into more mature offerings later on.
Well, that's definitely one we should dive into next time. I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. I'm all for making containers easier. I mean, I'm not a technician, but there's so much more opportunity the more mainstream and easier that gets to manage in these large organizations, I think.
Yeah, we're starting to see it so much more now. So it's I think it's weird when you work for a Silicon Valley based company. They years and years ago, containers was, to them, containers were everywhere. But now like years later, it's starting to really take hold. So the more and more we sort of move our customers and help them get into containerization of workloads, the better. And so even though these are small professional services engagements, they give customers that comfort level to take that step, because some just don't have people on staff that know how to do that yet. So we're trying to helping them move along that journey.
All right, so you've walked us through so many of these features, capabilities, and I know we're even just scratching at the surface and looking at some of the new stuff. But for Pure1, is it just available to customers? Is there a licensing model? How does that work?
Yeah, so when you order a system from us, it's included in your system. So it's not available to non-customers yet. We are looking into that though. So there is some investigation into, could we use some of these tool sets for non-Pure customers? So that is something we're looking into. But for right now, it's included in your system. There isn't any added cost. It's available via the cloud. So essentially, once you're a customer of record and you're in our system, Pure1 is just, as soon as that system is installed, it takes usually maybe 30 minutes at max, and then that data starts populating in Pure1. And once their user account's created, that's really it. That's all I have to do. Now, at that point, they can add additional users if they want. Like if there's people they want to be able to see Pure1 and not necessarily administer things, that you can do that. And we leave that on the customer end to make those decisions as to who should have access once it's deployed.
All right, so everyone that's a Pure customer should be using this. The tools and the insights are fantastic. Ralph, great walkthrough today. Certainly appreciate it. I'll come back to you for some container stuff, but this was great. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And hopefully, can I plug something really quick? Is that okay?
Yeah, plug away. Let's go.
So I have on the Pure Storage YouTube channel, I have a playlist called Digital Bytes, and in Digital Bytes, a lot of what we went through today, I do deeper dives into like giving customer scenarios as to where they might use these features, and it's strictly focused around Pure1. So if someone here watched this and they want to see a little bit more, they can certainly go to the YouTube channel and check out that Digital Bytes playlist, and I'd encourage them to do so.
Fantastic. We'll link to that in the description so they can go check that out afterwards. And that's great, even for those that want to really geek out a little bit more on these capabilities. So that's great that you did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks again. So glad to have you, and I'm sure you'll be back.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.